point, and I think is really the whole heartbeat of off-season athlete, is for so many when the season ends, they're like, all right, time to chill. Yeah. And then like a week before the season starts, it's like, oh, maybe I should get in shape, get stronger, whatever. So talk about why the off-season should have a different approach.
Okay, so the problem with what you just said is that people take off in the off-season. They'll come back a week before and they are just totally deconditioned. So it's important for them to really have a different mindset, because they'll come in ready in the shape they need to be in, and they can hit it hard in the preseason, where the preseason is more for more sport specificity, and they're working more towards power and agility rather than just strength. That's why in the off-season strength is so important. So in the beginning of the off-season, really what they want to look for is building more muscle. So that's just called hypertrophy, so just adding more muscle to their body. And then as they go more towards the preseason, they are still increased in intensity, but their volume decreases with the weight. That way that they're kind of tapering, so that they don't go in already almost overtraining for the preseason.
So would that look like then at the beginning of the off season, more frequency, like doing it more days a week, and then as you get closer to your season, you will back off on how often you are working out?
Yes. So essentially the beginning of the season or the beginning of the off season, you are going more frequency. You might start, let's say a cycle might start with a smaller set, so like 2 sets, 3 sets, and then as you go more towards, let's say the middle of the off season, you go with 4 or 5 sets of everything. That way you are increasing the volume. Gotcha. And then as we taper towards the end of the off season, the frequency does decrease. Let's say you go from 4 or 5 times a week even to doing 2 or 3 times a week, but the intensity of the weights stays there. Okay. So if I'm working, let's say I'm doing a back squat, and my back squat's at 135 for, let's say, 10 reps, I'll bump it down to stay at 135 for maybe 5 or 6 reps. Yeah, so the intensity stays up, but the volume decreases. That way I'm not overtraining going into the preseason.
So the concern right before that season starts then is to make sure that muscles aren't too broken down. Is that right?
Yeah, so you want to go in fully recovered, let me say. Not partially recovered, fully recovered. So if I am training really hard up to that preseason, my body's going to be hurting. Yeah. So I'm going to be sore. I'm going to be tired. So once they start that, let's say the first day of practice, and it's, let's see how conditioned you are. Let's go into 100-yard sprints. I'm like, no, my legs are not going to work very well. So just tapering is very important.
That's really fascinating, because I would say some athletes probably take like, the last chance workout mentality.
Yeah.
Let me hit it hard the week before.
No.
And do you think that could even increase their risk for injury?
That'll backfire for sure. So if they're just sitting on the couch all summer long or their whole off season, and then they go, oh man, I got a week until preseason. I'm gonna hit it hard now. They're way more likely to have injury because their muscles are not used to working that way. Yeah. And then if they do go into, let's say, sprinting or heavy lifting, their joints, their muscles are going to be aching.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I think it also just puts the emphasis back on the off season is really to make changes, to really get somewhere. That work should have already been done.
Yes,
You're just bridging that gap till the time the season starts. I think that's really helpful information.
Yeah. Good.
That's really good. Okay, so now let's talk about female athletes, because they often, from my experience, but I want you to speak from yours too, having worked with a lot of female athletes, they may not weight train in the off season, or they may not take it very seriously or do it very often for a variety of reasons. So why don't you talk about some of those reasons?
Okay, so the first and foremost reason that comes to my mind is debunking the myth of, I don't want to get bulky, I don't want to get big shoulders or big thighs. Females, we cannot physically get that muscular without, 1, taking anabolic steroids, which I do not suggest doing, or 2, literally living, breathing in the gym environment and just lifting, going hard all the time. Meals have to be prepped, ready to go, and you're eating like a bodybuilder.
Yeah. So you're saying it takes a very specific way of training and really living to have your body do something that extraordinary.
Yes, we physically cannot build muscle like men because we don't have the testosterone that they do. So strength training for us, it's going to be hugely beneficial for, getting stronger, getting lean muscles, or getting more muscular, but we will never amount to the amount of musculature that men can have. We just don't have the hormones for it.
So there you go. So a female athlete in the off season who is training 3 days a week, 4 days, or even 5 days a week, is that sure they're going to have changes in their body? What could they expect? What is realistic?
They could expect, it's called body recomp. So where, you take someone who has not trained at all, and, they might look skinny, but they're not exactly fit. So I don't know what the term you think I should be using, but I call it skinny fat almost, where they don't really have lean mass. So if you're training now during the off season, you can expect, yes, to maybe see some more musculature. Maybe you're getting a little bicep, a little quad definition. You might getting a decrease in fat mass, which might be ideal for your sport. You can expect yourself to be getting stronger, more powerful, quicker for your sport. Just looking more like an athlete and not just someone who doesn't play a sport.
And you said something in there too that was really important, is what that muscle will do for you. And I think that's really the main focus, is it's not just to get bigger,
No.
it's what being stronger does for you in your sport.
Exactly, yeah. So if you really want to thrive in your sport and you want to go far with it, the muscle that you put on is definitely going to be beneficial for you to outplay all the other teams, outplay your players, even your teammates. Like, be a leader for your teammates. Say, hey, look, this is what I did over the summer. I got stronger, I got faster, and to make our team better, you can follow along and go on the same guidelines that I did over the off season.
Absolutely. Now, what about, how does that training in the off season help with injury prevention once the season does start? What does being stronger do for you?
Okay, so being stronger, it'll definitely protect the joints. So especially for females, if we're talking for females, they have a huge susceptibility for the ACL tears. And when you tear your ACL, especially early on, you're going to have knee problems for the rest of your life as an athlete, and that's not good. So when we are strength training for our joints, or strength training in general, our joints will benefit, because now we're actually training the ligaments and the tendons in the joints, and that's going to keep them nice and strong and sturdy, and you're going to have less risk of injury.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me is reason enough.
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
Strength training is to protect those joints, especially for athletes that do want to have a longer career.
Exactly.
Some of those habits and the strength needs to be created earlier in their career, not when they go to college and they have all those resources. It needs to start earlier.
Now, yes, absolutely.
That's awesome. Okay, is there any other myths around female athletes that you think are important to talk about?
Myths around female athletes. I don't know if I can think of any off the top of my head. Just the big and bulky one is the biggest thing I get.
All right, let me ask you this then. Knowing this is a very general, universal question, what would you say would be like the top 5 or 6, or however many it is, main exercises that could benefit most female athletes?
Okay, so when I think of top 5 or 6, so not even just for females, I think really just for anybody, just going first and foremost more compound movement. So compound,
define that.
Yes, compound movement is when you're using more than just one joint at the same time. So for example, a squat, I'm using my hip and I'm using my knees. Okay, lunges, hips and knees. Presses, I'm using shoulders and arms, or shoulders and elbow. So compound is using basically your entire body rather than just one joint.
And is that mostly going to be like free weights then and bars?
So free weights, barbells. There's still some, like a leg press you can still use to make sure that maybe we're not loading the spine if you have a back injury. So leg press is still great. But just to compare it to, let's say, a leg extension, I'm seated and I'm just using my knee joint to extend. So now I'm using my quads, but I'm missing my hamstring and my glutes like I would get in the squat.
Yeah, and so what's the benefit of doing a compound movement as opposed to the isolated?
So I'm getting, basically I'm getting more bang for my buck. I'm recruiting more muscles with that movement rather than just a single muscle group. So again, going back to the leg extension versus a squat, I'm using glutes, hammies, my core, my quads, whereas a leg extension, it's just my quads.
That's pretty powerful to be able to do that, especially if you don't have a lot of time to train.
Exactly.
Or you're not comfortable doing longer workouts, or whatever the reason might be.
Yeah.
I think the bang for your buck is really crucial.
Absolutely, especially if coaches are throwing more things at these athletes during the off season. They can't just spend an hour and a half in the gym doing resistance training every day. So compound movement, so back squat or any squat in general.
That's just with the bar on the back,
yeah,
right?
Bar on the back, or you can even, if you don't want to load the spine, some coaches have a problem with that. A goblet squat, so putting a dumbbell in front and squatting that way. Dumbbells on the shoulders. Lunges, awesome, again, core strength and leg strength. A deadlift, so just literally picking something up off the ground and putting it back down, learning the right technique for that. A bent over row, so anything with a row for the back. Bent over rows are usually the best because you're getting the whole back, you're stabilizing with the core. Let's see, what else can I do?
And those are all really good ones.
All
and
awesome.
Those are ones I'd say, especially for first time weightlifters, can be sort of intimidating. So to know that there's a lot of benefits there is huge. Like, it's okay to step away from the Nautilus machines and get into that free weight area. And certainly having someone show you how to do those properly is good.
And that's what you said is just as important. So making sure that someone shows you these movements first, because if you are just used to doing machines are great for beginners because it's not putting you out of that wrong range of motion. But to start using more stability with your joints, getting out of those machines and using free weights, barbells, things like that is going to be more beneficial.
That's awesome. I thought of another question, and maybe kind of around our myths too. What about the idea between doing more reps, lower weight, versus less reps, higher weight? Because I see that some in female athletes too, along the lines of I don't want to bulk up, so I'm just going to do 25 bicep curls with a lighter weight versus something more significant.
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So especially for females, they go more towards the end of higher weight, reps rather, lower weight. So what happens is there's different, the different volume and intensities we use is for different goals. So if I'm going like let's say 3 to 5 reps and I'm doing, let's say 5 sets, a lot of sets and high weight, low reps, that's for strength. So when I'm building strength, I'm strengthening the muscle that I already have on me. So I'm not going to be gaining more muscle mass, I'm getting myself stronger. Perfect for power athletes, people that have like 10-second bouts of let's say sprinting, like a football player on the field, or like a shot put thrower, something like that. Just using the quick ATP PC system. For a range that's more like 8 to 12 reps, that's our hypertrophy range, so we are building more muscle mass. So now we're taking the muscle that we have, breaking it down, and then our body is going to build it back up, creating more muscle tissue for us. If I go past 15 reps and up, like a lot of our female athletes would do, we're going more towards muscular endurance. So while yes, you are still resistance training, it's more aerobically based, and I'm not going to be gaining that strength, gaining that muscle mass that I should be as an athlete. So when we talk about strength and gaining more muscle, we want to go more towards the lower reps, the 6 to 12, and then the sets depends on the cycle you're in. You might want to start with 2 or 3 sets earlier on, build yourself up to maybe 3 to 5 sets, and that's really going to put some more strength and lean mass on you.
Perfect. That's great. So one of the things that, and maybe I'm speaking from myself as a former female athlete too, I think sometimes it's intimidating being in a gym setting as a female athlete with a bunch of dudes around. No offense, dudes. But like, lifting heavy stuff, and sometimes weightlifting is hard.
Yeah.
So can you talk about the level of challenge you should feel in your body? Like, what's a good hard to do? When should you embrace it, and when have you maybe gone too far, or you need some help to make sure you're doing it right?
Okay, so what I like to use a bicep curl. Everyone's pretty much done a bicep curl. So we're curling that dumbbell, and I'm like, I'm feeling that burn. Yeah, it's hurting me. Okay, but now I'm going past 12. Okay, I can do 15. I can do 16. Okay, let's stop. I'm going more towards that muscular endurance phase now. So even though I'm feeling that burn in my muscles, that doesn't necessarily mean that might be the right weight for me if I can keep going. So what you want to feel essentially is a fatigue factor where I can't push myself past a certain point, past that last rep. So if I'm, again, aiming for the 8 to 12 and I hit 10, I'm like, oh, I can't do another one. I know that's the right weight for me. I'm fatiguing. Now, when you feel like you push too far, your joints will tell you. You might feel a little twinge or a little pain in your shoulder, your bicep, your hips. That's when you know you pushed too far.
So that fatigue point is really what you're shooting for.
Yeah.
And will you feel that in your first set, or are you waiting for your third or fourth rep, or is that happening? It's happening every time.
Yeah, it should be happening every time to get the benefits. Now you can expect, let's say the first set you hit the 12 reps and you're going for the 8 to 12, and then the second set you only hit 10. You can expect to maybe drop by 1 or 2 reps because you are fatiguing yourself every time. But if you go for 8 for the first set and you only hit 3 on the next, you know that weight's too heavy. You need to decrease that weight.
That's really a helpful tip, I think. And to not be intimidated by that feeling of fatigue. I know sometimes that word is, even for me, is like, oh, that's a very intimidating word. But that's a good place. That's where you're going to get the most impact.
Yeah, discomfort is definitely key. And a lot of people, they don't want to be uncomfortable. I don't want to feel uncomfortable.
Sure.
But to make, to make gains in the gym, essentially, we need to feel that discomfort zone. And the quote that I like to use is, get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. Just, pushing yourself, to that limit in the gym is really going to benefit athletic performance on the field or the ice or wherever you're at.
That's a great quote. I love that. We're going to use that more for sure. Because I think the important thing is to make connections back to your sport. Will you be in a game where it's going to be uncomfortable to continue to push yourself?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Will you be in a practice where you want to give up because it's hard? Yeah. But the more you practice getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, the more your brain will catch up and be like, this is normal for us.
Exactly.
This is how we push ourselves. And I think we could argue makes athletes elite to embrace that.
Absolutely.
So it's a really powerful statement. I'm so glad that you shared that. So, all right, well, as we finish, just, when you think about teen athletes, male or female, is there any big tip? I mean, you just kind of landed us with a gold bomb there. But, is there anything else in addition that you would either encourage them to do or you see as a common mistake to look for, or just any general advice?
I would say, from my own personal experience, so I was always self-motivated to just get in the gym. I love the gym. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. But just follow what your coaches have to say. Essentially, try not to just be like, okay, I'm in season and now I'm out of season, so out of season, just go through my normal life. If you want this sport to really be a big deal, going into college or high school, and you want to perform well, make sure that you're listening to your coaches, make sure you're asking questions, take the in-season, the preseason, postseason, off-season, take it for what it is, and make sure that you're using it wisely and not just taking time off. That would be my best advice.
I think that's great advice. And we like to say it, off-season athlete. Who will you become in the off-season? It's an opportunity for you. And everybody is becoming someone. Some type of athlete, some type of person in the off-season. It's just a matter of who you want that person to be. So, well, thank you so much, Amanda. This was awesome.
Thank you, Jenna.
It was so much great to share.